process to start a nonprofit organization can be pretty overwhelming, especially if you've never done it before and don't have a lot of experience in the nonprofit realm. I've also talked to so many people who managed to get their nonprofit launched, they maybe even filed their official paperwork to become official in the eyes of the government, and then they find themselves asking, what am I supposed to do now? So that's what I'm going to answer in this video. I'm going to talk about what you need to do immediately after you start your nonprofit to set yourself up for success as you get things going and grow. Now, for the purpose of this video, when I say start a nonprofit, what I'm talking about is at least taking the first steps to file your official paperwork. If you're in the United States, this starts with typically incorporating as a nonprofit corporation in the state that you're operating in, and then followed by filing your federal 1023 paperwork to get tax exempt status from the IRS. And for the purposes of further clarification, I'm specifically talking about 501c3 public charities in this video. So before I get into our topic, I just want to introduce myself if we haven't met before. I'm Amber Melanie Smith. I'm a nonprofit founder, current executive director of the nonprofit that I started, and I make these YouTube videos to help folks getting started in their social impact, nonprofit journeys, and more. I really hope that you find this useful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and ring that bell to get alerts for the next time I post on YouTube. And of course, hopefully like this video as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 6 steps that you really want to be taking as soon as you launch your nonprofit officially, and I also want to put forth the disclaimer that you can be working on these things while you're waiting for the government to officially recognize you as a nonprofit as well. So you don't have to technically wait, at least on most of these steps, for you to have that official paperwork in hand. Before I talk about the 6 things, I do want to say that there are several things that ideally you should have done before you even started a nonprofit or filed your paperwork to get that nonprofit going in the first place. And they are the following. The first and highly critical piece, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that you needed to have done very thorough market research on the community need that your nonprofit aims to address. There are millions of nonprofits in the United States, at least, and several of them are tackling similar issues. So it's really important to make sure before you start a new nonprofit that your nonprofit is going to be addressing a genuine, true need in the community. Not only is this just a smart and ethical thing to do, but it will impact your ability to get funding and supporters in the future. A lot of donors and foundations and grant makers really don't like to see too much competition in nonprofits. They want to make sure that nonprofits are working well together if they do tackle similar issues, and that nonprofits are also looking to fill needs that have not yet been addressed by other nonprofits. Another reason research is so important is because we need to test our assumptions of what we think is going to be the proper solution for a community issue. There's this case study about this nonprofit called Play Pumps International, and this was a nonprofit that wanted to build wells to get water to underserved villages in several countries in Africa, and they did not do sufficient research. They did not talk to the communities that they intended to serve to get buy-in, to make sure that those communities actually wanted these water solutions. And the result was they raised and spent millions of dollars on a solution that the community didn't end up wanting and did not end up using either. So this is just one of those stories that you want to avoid when you are setting out to launch your own nonprofit organization. Another thing that you'll have needed before officially launching your nonprofit is a board of directors. This is usually a legal requirement in most states in the United States where you would file to get your nonprofit status, but also you just don't want to be doing this by yourself. You need a team of people around you with the right skill sets to help your organization meet its goals for the next couple of years as soon as you begin. If you haven't actually started that stage and you're wondering how do you recruit a board of directors, I have several great videos on that. Check out my videos on the types of board roles that you need for your organization, how to create a board application, and where to find great board members. And the third thing, obviously, you need a great name for your organization. You can't even file your paperwork without a name for your organization. Of course, you can always change your name later, but may as well pick a great one from the start. If you need help figuring out what constitutes a great, memorable name that will inspire people to donate and rally around your cause, you guessed it, I have another video around that too. Check out my video checklist for a great nonprofit name. Okay, so you've got all those things taken care of, and now you're launching and you are getting your official paperwork in order. Maybe you've already filed it, it's on the way back to you soon. What do you do now? Here are the 6 things that you need to be mindful of and take action around in the very, very beginning as soon as you launch. Number 1 is to create your business and or strategic plans for the organization. As I said before, this is something you could be working on before you file your paperwork, while you're waiting for word back from the government on your paperwork. But if you haven't done it before you launch, you should be working on it as soon as you get your paperwork back. A business plan is going to map out all the market research that you did for your organization to build a case for why this nonprofit needs to exist. It's going to talk through the specific goals and actions that you're going to need to take in order to achieve those goals within the first year or 2 of your organization's operations. And finally, and very importantly, it's going to lay out your plan for how you're going to raise money to cover all the costs of the organization. The second thing is you want to, if possible, do a pilot test of your organization's main program that it intends to offer, to just, once again, test your assumptions, make sure that you haven't guessed at an incorrect or inappropriate solution. Make sure your program is one that the community needs, one that it wants, that it will be responsive to, and one that's really going to make a difference in your service area, because that's why we're starting a nonprofit in the first place. It's to make an impact in our community. So how do you know what to pilot test? Well, hopefully the research that you did before you started will identify some of the biggest needs and gaps in services in your service area to begin with. For example, let's say you learn through your research that 2,000 or 3,000 kids in your city don't have a winter coat in order to keep them warm when the winter comes. And you also learn by researching the landscape and seeing what other nonprofits in your area are doing that nobody is really providing winter coats to these kids. So now you know through your research that there's a true need, that nobody else is addressing it yet, and you know what you need to do. You need to get those kids some winter coats. So that's how your preliminary research would inform what programs to test out and hopefully, when they work, scale up and grow. If you're not sure if your program or pilot test of that program is working, you really need to be building in some kind of evaluation method into the program. For example, surveys of the people being served to ask them, is this program helping you? How is it helping you? You can also do other evaluation methods like focus groups, or getting testimonials from the people you serve, etc. But you've got to have some way of measuring your results. Measuring your results means that you're going to be able to show your future donors and potential funders that you are making a real impact and that you and your organization deserve the funding in order to grow that impact. The third thing that you need to be working on, and again, can be working on before you even file your official paperwork, is building up a following for your cause. And when I say following specifically, I might be referring to building up your organization's mailing list, your social media following, and basically just the network of people who are in your service area that know about and care about your cause. These people, your followers, will form your base of future potential donors, volunteers, and maybe even future board members and leaders of your organization alongside you. The fourth thing you need to do is to meet and collaborate with other nonprofits in your area. These can be organizations that are tackling similar issues as your organization. They can also be organizations that address issues that are kind of like related but not completely overlapping your issue. For example, let's say your nonprofit will tackle food insecurity, and you know that hunger is linked to academic success. So maybe you want to meet with some nonprofits that are tackling education and providing support to kids in school, because those issues are going to complement each other and be related to one another. And you can find some really interesting ways to collaborate, which funders and people in the community really love to see. The fifth thing that you want to do as soon as you launch, and this is somewhat related to that number one thing I talked about earlier, which was your business or strategic plan. This is determining the best revenue model and fundraising model for your unique organization. A lot of people gravitate towards grants, thinking that grants are easy to get for any or all nonprofits, that they're just out there throwing money at all of us nonprofits, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that is sadly not true. Getting grants for your nonprofit is actually pretty competitive, and you often need to have a bit of work under your belt before you can prove to a funder, a grant foundation, that you are eligible for and or deserving of the funding that they are dispersing. An exception for a startup might be if the new organization is established by somebody who's very well known in the community, who has a really strong reputation of success, possibly in the same social impact area as this new nonprofit is being formed to address. So if the people involved in this new nonprofit already have a track record of success in other ways related to this issue, the funder potentially might see that as a good reason to invest early on in a new nonprofit that these same folks are starting. But anyway, that's my grant rant. So the truth is, grants are not always the best fit for every nonprofit. They can be quite competitive. So I always recommend that a nonprofit find other ways to bring in revenue and bring in sustainable revenue, which means ongoing revenue that the organization can rely on year after year. There are a ton of other ways nonprofits can be bringing in funding, from individual donations to corporate sponsorships to events, though that's a bit interesting in pandemic times, and one of my favorites, earned income. So if you want to learn more about some of those different ways organizations can raise money, check out my other video, which is called something like the ways successful nonprofits raise money, or something to that effect. And the sixth thing that new nonprofiteers need to be starting to do as soon as they get things going is to create their budget for year one. This will allow them to build on that budget for years 2 and 3 and so on and so on. But starting with year one, and you can build your budget by researching the expenses you're going to need to achieve the specific goals for the first year that you laid out in that number one thing, that strategic plan, knowing what you're going to need to spend money on in order to do that, and also incorporating some of the operational costs that are just part of running a nonprofit, like having your website or getting liability insurance in case a volunteer gets hurt, or all those things like that that are a bit less fun to talk about but are sadly very important, critical aspects of managing a nonprofit effectively and above board. Okay, so I'd love to hear from you at this point. What stage in launching a nonprofit or whatever other social impact venture you're working on are you at now? What have you done on this list so far? What's next on your to-do list? Share in the comments below. So I hope you liked this video. Please go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel for more videos about launching a nonprofit or social impact project to make a difference in the world. Once again, I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I make these YouTube videos weekly. One more thing, don't forget to check out my Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, it's called Change the World or Bust. Myself and other change makers from around the world. It's really quite amazing. We've got folks from Germany and Mexico and all across the United States and everywhere in between, and it's just so great to be a part of the community. Change makers around the world coming together, encouraging each other, getting advice from each other on our journeys. So if you're on Facebook, come check that out and join our little community that is growing faster and faster. Oh, one more thing, if you are interested in staying in touch with me and working together on getting your stuff up and running, keep an eye on my website. I've got the link to that in my description below, because I'm going to be offering some pretty cool things, trainings and opportunities for folks who want to get their nonprofit started or their social impact journey started, and I love meeting new change makers. So check out my website in the link below, and see you next time.